Okay, now we're going to do section 7-4, parallel and perpendicular lines. The first one says, find the slope of each line. Slope of line A. If you look at the points for slope of line A, just take two of your points and think of the word slope means rise over run. Those are the algebra words for slope. When you rise and run on any 2 points, think of the spaces. Space 1 over 2. So the rise is 1, the run is 2. And it is a positive slope because it's slanting upward. Look at slope of line B. Try it. Find 2 points and count up 1. If you look at up 1, you're also going over 2. Up 1 over 2. It's kind of like a staircase. You're going up 1 and over 2. Rise 1, run 2. These are the same slope. On C, this is for, D is going to be the one going this way. C is this one. On this one, the rise is up 2 and over 1. Up 2 and over 1. So you look at the rise over the run. On one like this, you can simplify it to just the whole number 2. For the slope of line D, this one is the only one that's going up, rising up to the left side, so you're going to go up 2, and that's a negative 1, so that means it's a negative 2 over 1 slope. That can be simplified to negative 2. If you compare the lines, look at the lines, it looks like A is parallel to B. That means that they're the same distance apart. But look at their slopes. See how they both have a 1/2 slope? They each have the same slope. So these are the same slope. So that means they're parallel. Now look at the ones that are, this one right here, slope D. That one has a negative 2 slope. So if you look at it, A and B are perpendicular to D, the line D, because perpendicular means at a 90-degree angle. If you look, I can put a piece of paper in and see the corner right here makes a 90-degree angle. This right here is 90 degrees. You can kind of tell that slope A and line A and line D also are parallel. Look at this one. If I slide it down, if you look at the slope of D and B, they're also 90 degrees. Those are called two slopes that have different reciprocal slopes is what they're called. So if you have a slope of 1/2, the opposite reciprocal, make sure you write this down. This is an important vocabulary. 1/2, the opposite reciprocal, that means to flip it, is negative 2. You could think of negative 2 over 1 if you want to think of taking the numerator and flipping the denominator. Opposite just means make sure you make it the opposite sign. So let's try that with these right here. If you're given a slope of 2/3, remember to be parallel, the slope would be the same. But for perpendicular, you actually take the reciprocal of 2/3 and then make sure you make it an opposite sign. If you have a slope of 4, another one would parallel to it would also have a slope of 4, but the reciprocal of 4 is 1 over 4. And remember, it's an opposite, so this one's positive. For 1/4, you have negative 1/4. You always keep it the same when they're parallel. And then you reverse the numerator and denominator, and you make it an opposite. Since it's 4 over 1, you could just put 4. This one's like 2 over 1, so the slope's the same if it's parallel. And then it's an opposite reciprocal. So if you take the reciprocal of 2, you get 1/2. An opposite reciprocal would be negative 1/2. So just remember that lines that are parallel have slopes that are the same, and lines that are perpendicular have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. And that just means to take the opposite sign and flip the number. Okay, turn the page. This one, we're going to take two different equations that are lines, and we're going to decide if they're parallel or perpendicular. So remember, when you're looking at these, you're wanting to take the slope-intercept form. This is called the slope-intercept form of an equation. Just remember that the slope is the m and the y-intercept is the b. This is really the y-intercept. You might want to remember that's going to be on the graph where it hits the y-axis. So really all you're having to look at are these numbers right here. You want to know if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. On this one you have a -1/2 and a 2. Since those are opposite reciprocals, those are perpendicular. For number 2, now they look like they're the same, but they're not. This one's positive and this one's negative. So they are opposites, but they're not reciprocals. So these graphs, if we graph them, are neither parallel nor perpendicular. On this one, this could be understood as a 1x. So this right here, this could be written, this means, write this in your notes, this means 1/7x. That's another way to write it. If you wanted to write your x/7, it does mean the same thing. Now, even though it doesn't have a y-intercept, they do have the same slope, so these are parallel. Make sure you ask if you're still confused on how to determine whether an equation is parallel or perpendicular. Okay, now we're going to get into a little more challenge. This one wants you to write an equation in slope-intercept form. Remember that right here, this slope-intercept form, it's on the formula sheet. That is y equals mx plus b. These are just letters that replace slope and intercept. That pass through a given point and is parallel to the graph of the given equation. Now the way I would start this one is take this equation right here and solve it for y. So I want you to move your x term. We'll ignore the point for a minute. We're just going to move this around so that we have y equals mx plus b. Since 5x minus 5x is 0, make sure you bring down the minus sign. So 2y would equal, now remember these are unlike terms, so I'm going to write it as -5x, and that's a +8, so I'm going to put +8. Then you're going to divide out by -2. I like to show it on both sides, so divide by -2. Divide all your terms by -2. Because this is a negative divided by a negative, that will end up as a positive fraction. You could write it as a decimal, but I'm going to leave it as a fraction. This divides out to make -4, so you just write -4. Now this is your slope, and remember we want it to be parallel, so parallel, remember, I'm going to write it over here for you. Remember, parallel, we're going to use the same slope. So this is going to replace our m. Our m is going to be 5/2. So if you go back and look, we have this mx plus b form, and we're going to replace our m with 5/2. That's our m. Now since they've given us a point, go back over here and look at this point. This is your x and this is your y. So you're going to replace under the y, you're going to put a 9. That's the point they want you to use. The x is a 2. So we're going to replace that with a 2. Since mx means multiply, I'm going to put it in parentheses. But we don't know what the b is, so we're going to leave that a variable. When you multiply 5/2 times 2, you can put this in the calculator if you want. That gives you 5. And then when you want to solve for b, you want to subtract b on both sides. 5 on both sides. So b would equal 4. So now you have your m and your b. So when you write your equation, you can write I'll put it over here. You're going to write your equation by replacing m with 5 over 2. Don't lose the x. That's part of your equation. Plus 4. So this right here, why don't you put a big box around it? That's going to be your answer. That's the equation in slope-intercept form of a line that passes through the point 29, and it's parallel to the equation represented by 5x minus 2y equals 8. So what you're doing is you're finding the m and the b of the equation. Let's try one more. On this next one, this one is a little bit easier because they've already put it in y equals mx plus b form. So remember, this is your m, but this time they want you to write an equation in slope-intercept form of a line that passes through the given point and is perpendicular to the graph. And this time we're going to have to use an opposite reciprocal. So when you fill in, I'm going to go ahead and write the formula again. You're going to replace your y with this one. This is your y, negative 13. Your m, you're not going to use 2/9. You're going to use, make sure you use, I'm going to write it for you in your notes, the opposite reciprocal. So remember to flip it, make it 9 over 2 instead of 2 over 9, and make sure you make an opposite sign. So that's what I'm going to use for my m. My x comes from the x coordinate right here. That's 6. And remember, we don't know what the b is yet. So you're going to take your equation and solve it for b. When you multiply negative 9 over 2 times 6, that'll be negative 27. You can put that in the calculator. Then you're going to bring your 27 to the other side. You're going to add 27 to both sides. So b would equal, it's going to be, what is that going to be, 14? Yeah, 14. So your equation, now that you have your b, I'll write it down here in the corner, is y equals, go back and find your m. Your m was already the reciprocal slope, so it's negative 9 over 2. Leave the x. The x and y are all your points on your line, so you don't really want to fill those in with numbers. We did fill them in with 6 and negative 13, but we don't need that right now. And then since the y-intercept is positive 14, we're going to put plus 14. This is your equation. And if you want to learn how to put these in the calculator, come ask me and I will show you a method that even you can look at the pictures and see that they're going to be perpendicular and go through the graph. So ask how to do in the calculator. I'm going to write that on it. Ask me how to put into the calculator. I'm going to put a little cloud around that. You want to ask me if you want to know how to put it in the calculator. Good luck.